Hey everybody, I'm Alexis. This is Garrett.
Hello.
I have my cat here, so you'll probably see this cat. This is Cricket. If you see her on the screen. So we're talking about what we find annoying about the types, and no, it's just kind of like a tongue-in-cheek title. Like we love all the types. Like I've said in other videos, I feel like if you get into typology and it makes you hate certain types more or hate certain people more, then you're doing it wrong. Like it should make you understand people a little more, understand where they're coming from. And maybe there were certain types of functions that bothered you, but now that you understand that, oh, it's a function or whatever, and this is actually providing some benefit to the world, then you can start to, have a little more empathy for people or understand them more. So yeah, in this video we're going to talk about the ESFP. I love ESFPs. They're super fun. I have super great relationships with them. I was coworkers with a really good ESFP that I really liked. And in thinking about like what I like about ESFPs, is a weird thing to like, but some super attractive people, like especially in style, like they just have some super great style and fun. And I think that they have a deep, kind of like a philosophical side that doesn't come out around everyone. So it's kind of more like layers to peel from the onion. And so I think they're super well-rounded. Like great in a career setting, super fun, and can be deep. And so that's what I like about ESFPs. What do you like about the ESFPs?
I love ESFPs just in a group setting. I think they're like life of the party normally. So they're super fun to be around. I think great at planning fun events for people. Yeah, they're just great to be around.
Yeah.
Especially in groups.
Yeah, for sure. So before we get started, we want to talk about some mistypes. If you're like pretty new to like Myers-Briggs or whatever, you just took a 16 personalities test. I find that the 16 personalities test is often one letter off. Sometimes it's all the way on, sometimes it's like way off, but a lot of times it's one letter off. So you might want to look into ISFP or ENFP or ESTP or ESFJ. So those are the ones maybe that you could look into. ESFP, I know it seems like there may be less mistypes with ESFP. It seems like there are other types. So yeah, I want to get into the function overview real quick before we get started. Their first function is extroverted sensing. So extroverted just kind of meaning external. It's like not stuff that's happening like in your head or how you're feeling or whatever, but stuff that's happening external. And then sensing is like your experiences, things that you can experience through your senses. And so since it's their first function, they love being attuned to that. Like, everyone has eyes. Everyone is, looking at things externally, but it's just like a love for doing it, much more nuance. It makes them, when you're tuned into the external experience, it makes you really present. And so there's an extreme amount of presence when you spend so much time in that function. So their second function is introverted feeling. So introverted meaning internal, and then feeling meaning like it could be your feelings, your emotions, convictions, morals, things like that. So it's like inside, how do you feel about things? How do you process like how you're feeling? And not how does the group feel about things, like not group norms, but how do you as an individual and your uniqueness feel about things? The third function is extroverted thinking. Extroverted kind of meaning external, having to do with, it could be people, things, job, stuff that's out here. And then thinking is kind of logical criteria. So this is a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times things that have to do with metrics or numbers. So when you think of like external numbers, that's a lot of times like time management, people management. Are we as a group working fast enough? Are we as a group being productive? Are we making enough money? Are we hitting our goals by Q2? These are kind of like external measures of logical criteria. And then their fourth function is introverted intuition. And introverted meaning like processing inwardly, and then intuition is the opposite of sensing. So it's the opposite of what you're experiencing right now. It's like, what are the implications of what's happening right now, or what are the patterns? It's basically what's not there. So it's an inward processing of what could be happening or the implications of what's happening, and it's a processing of kind of the patterns or like maybe the meaning that you're making. So and the first function and fourth function are on an axis, so you're taking this extreme amount of presence that you have and then kind of processing what's going on underneath the surface, so to speak, things that are not currently present. So yeah, oh, cat's gone. Okay, sweet. So okay, that's that. So let's get into things that we find annoying about the first function.
And quick reminder, we are hitting all these personalities, so we are talking about what's annoying about the personality, but we are hitting these for all of them. And
yeah, we're trying super hard to be fair, I think is what he's trying to get at. We are being painstakingly fair. Like, as I'm going through, I'm trying to do like 4 points for the first function, 2 points for the rest of the functions, because I want to be extremely fair. Like, even though there are certain types that are like my favorites and I love ESFPs, I'm trying to be super fair.
And the point of this is growth, so it's sort of like a tongue-in-cheek way of finding some growth paths.
Right. Yeah, that is the point. Yeah.
All right. What do you got for SE?
Let's see. This is something I feel that they have a tendency to interrupt, kind of this like blurtiness or whatever. Like they just have something like so funny to say or whatever, and they like blurt or interrupt. So I find that can happen sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I put sort of a talk a lot without thinking was a similar vibe. So I think SE DOMs, the ESTP also we talked about, can just do a lot of blurting or talking without necessarily thinking through what they're gonna say, and so that can get them into some trouble. Just talking without thinking can lead to some dumb statements sometimes.
Yeah. One thing that's kind of specific to the ESFP versus the ESTP is, I mean, it depends on the ESTP, but ESTPs have introverted thinking, and so sometimes if you call them out, they're better about, oh yeah, that was wrong. Introverted feeling, that's his dominant function, has a harder time accepting blame, I think. So sometimes ESTPs might be blurty, and then it's really hard to get them to come around. They just kind of like double down, and you can even tell sometimes that they think that they're wrong. Like they agree with you, they think they're wrong, but very hard to get them to admit it sometimes.
One thing I also put, they can be, so ESFPs are extremely in the present moments, that they're like, it seems like sort of everywhere all at once, but it can be hard to pin down, like, are you, like, how stable are you with me as a, like, I've found, I think, like, they can be hard to depend on, I guess, is a way to put it. So, because they're so in the present moment and doing, like, it seems like a million things at once, maybe they show up 10 minutes late to your appointment that you had said to hang out with them or something. They can be sort of undependable in certain things because of their doing everything all at once.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a ESFP that I worked with, and that kind of like hard to depend on thing. We would like split up the tasks. Like, okay, you are you're gonna plan the lesson for Wednesday. I'll plan the lesson for Tuesday or whatever. You're gonna talk about this and this. We'll talk about this and this. And we would kind of divvy up like what all we wanted to be included in the lesson, and then I'd get the lesson back, and like half of the things were missing. It was just kind of, and that would happen kind of frequently. It was just kind of this lack of attention to detail. And she would include a lot of really fun things. Like, it'd make a really fun lesson, but you're like, we're missing some of the key learning objectives in this fun lesson. And she'd just be like, oh, that's fine, it doesn't matter. Okay. This one, okay, I can notice them to, okay, this has a big caveat, this one. Okay, so I had a friend, super airheaded. I mean, it was unfortunate. There were a lot of people that made fun of her for being airheaded. I mean, people were pretty rude to her about how airheaded she was. I mean, it was kind of like Legally Blonde vibes, like kind of like that type of person. And after I'd been friends with her for a while, she kind of confided in me, and she's like, I put that on purpose because it lets people's guard down. She's like, I find out so much information about people when they think that I'm less than them, and that it's fine to like share stuff with me. And I was like, wow, that was like, I think that was a little like, my mind was blown a little bit, like maybe it was a little NI, because I think it was genuine. Like, I don't think she was lying about that. Like, that was, I'm like, wow, what a tactic, be airheaded so you can find out more stuff about people.
Yeah.
I was like, it's working great. Okay, did you have any others about this, or should I
Nope,
say
that was it.
And this is one of those like detail oriented things, like kind of similar in the same vein as like the lesson planning thing. So what did she do? So she like missed her hair appointment. Let me think how this went. So she gets a hair appointment. They text her and say, okay, here's a hair appointment. Respond with the word yes to confirm the appointment. If you say nothing, we're going to cancel your appointment. Now, she didn't read the fine print of this thing. Okay, so she doesn't even pay attention to the details. She shows up to her hair appointment, and it had been canceled because she never responded anything to the text. So she comes back, and she's complaining to all of us, and she's like, can you believe that? Why would they even do that? She's like, how was I supposed to know they were going to cancel my appointment? This is ridiculous. So I left a terrible review on their website, and she just goes into all this, like, bad TEFI. But it's kind of this, like, how was I supposed to know? It's like, well, then it's kind of hard to side with her, because you're like, you know, it said, you're reading me the text out loud. It literally says what's going to happen. She's like, that's just a stupid policy. They should just, if you call and make an appointment, you should keep the appointment. I'm like, yeah, maybe it is a stupid policy, but I still think that you're in the fault here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it for extroverted sensing. Okay, introverted feeling. This is your... We'll see what Garrett says.
For this, I put sort of a showy authenticity. So it seems like Whereas I think FI DOMs are a little more subtle with their authenticity, and um, it seems like ESFPs or ENFPs with the FI second can be sort of braggy about things they're doing that are authentic for them. So maybe that's like a prime example, I guess, is being vegan or working out a lot, or maybe that's being spiritual, like whatever that looks like for you. I think FE in the second place can be a lot more braggy about that sort of stuff, whereas FI dominant doesn't really brag about those sort of authenticity things. So that's one thing. As an FI dom, it bugs me. I don't think you really noticed it. I've talked to you about it, but I've noticed that in EFPs that it like just grinds me the wrong way when I hear people like just bragging about authenticity stuff.
Right. Yeah, I was gonna put the same thing. Sometimes can be self-righteous. I'm not actually, 100% familiar with the term virtue signaling, but I think virtue signaling maybe is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Self-righteous and self-centered. It's a lot of self-orientedness this function can be. It's like I know I went out to a group of us went out to dinner one time, and there was an ESFP, and he didn't get his order like exactly how he wanted, and he was like pretty rude to the waiter about it. I mean, any type can be rude to a waiter or whatever, but the reason he was because it was not delivered to him perfectly, and he didn't like it, and so he sends it back. And so it's like this expectation of quality from other people, but like in the example of like the teacher that I would collaborate with, it didn't go the other way around. So if like she was sloppy about something, it's fine. But other people like better deliver stuff to you how you want it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can kind of get FI second if it's unhealthy. And I want to clarify that a lot of these, it's like a spectrum. You got healthy ESFPs, unhealthy ESFPs, and a lot of this is more on the unhealthy end. So it's not like all ESFPs are exhibiting these traits, but the unhealthier ones I notice more. So FI second can be more like, it's like a spoiled brat. That's the vibe I get. I mean, it's kind of rude, but that's the vibe I get sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, the only other thing I had for FI, I think sometimes with EFPs you notice that they don't seem to know like what they want long term. I think FI's dominant is really good at knowing what it desires and wants, I guess. But I guess with EFPs with NI lower and with FI second have a hard time knowing what they want long term or what their purpose is. Like they're doing a lot in the present moment, but why are they doing what they're doing?
Yeah, when you think of like NI, so introverted intuition, so it's an inward processing of what could be. Like the intuition is kind of like what could be. So that's a lot of processing of the future. So that's part of what you're talking about is kind of like an NI issue. Is it's not processing long term, not a deep processing of the long term what they want. Just kind of like a short term.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that can lean into some. This is such a professional, such a like gluttony. I don't know what else to call it. That makes it sound so professional. Not professional, but serious or something. But yeah, like some just stuff like that. Just like spontaneously, hey, let's all do a Taco Bell run, and it's like super fun. It's like super fun in the moment, but it doesn't have like very long term good implications. I mean, on the flip side of that is it can be so fun. There's like one time I was in Seattle hanging out with some friends. This ESFP had this Jeep top down. It's like driving super fast on the freeway, bumping the music. So you get some fun experiences. Maybe not super great long term. Like maybe that wasn't particularly safe, but super fun. Okay, TE. What do you have, TE?
I said this with the TE second users, but bossy without leadership. And I notice this even more, I guess, in the EFPs. So they're often not very bossy because they're often not trying to, take lead roles necessarily. But I've noticed sometimes there are occasions where they do, and they do it in a very bossy way and not like TE dominant is good at, I think, empowering people and getting group consensus and stuff, whereas TE in this third place can sometimes just be sort of nitpicky, bossy, telling people what to do.
Yeah, I think bossy is a good word for TE third. You know what I mean? I think TE can be a lot about leadership because it's focused on like how are we meeting our external like logical criteria basically. So it's like how are we on our goals? How are we on money? How are we on time? Whatever. And so that does lend itself toward being toward leadership or being the CEO type or whatever. But in the third spot, bossy is the more appropriate word than leadership, I think.
Yeah.
I was gonna mention vanity metrics. I know a lot of ESFPs super into like social media or whatever. And so extroverted thinking can be about metrics, and one of those things are social media metrics. So how many followers do you have? And they get super into the crunching the numbers. This is how many followers I have, but it's with a little bit of that FI vanity. I feel like there's some self-centered with that FI second. And so super into how many followers they have and how much money they're making. And it can be kind of showy. Like, look how cool I am. You can tell how cool I am by my social media metrics.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like the EFPs can be some of the most, it seems like, self-centered types, at least from an outward observation. I don't know what that function would be, but
I think it's maybe FI. And maybe FI first is more so.
Could be.
Yeah, I think FI. In general, unhealthy FI is pretty self-centered. So it probably could be multiple types. I get that from ITJs. Okay, so I found this happens a lot, I noticed, with FI and TE second or third. So it could go either way. It could be TE second, FI third, or the types that have, FI second, TE third. But it's TE doing the dirty work for FI. So, like, it'll be, the example was, I had this friend, and she didn't want to go visit her sister. So it's kind of this FI, I don't feel like it, I don't want to, it doesn't sound fun to me, it's this FI. So you got this FI reason, I just don't want to. So you got this FI reason. But then FI is like, well, if I say that, people are going to think I'm a bad person because FI is all about, I don't want people to feel badly about me. So what I need to do is I'm not going to say the real reason because people will think I'm a bad person and I don't want any of this negative attention my way. I only want this positive attention. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make up a TE excuse. And so I'm going to make up some reason. Okay, I'd love to come visit you, but I don't have the money to do it. And so you come up with this, TE responsible metric reason or whatever. People are like, what do you mean you don't? And then you end up getting caught in it because then you're like, you just bought a really expensive car. You just bought really expensive clothes. You're spending all this money before the fact, after the fact. And you get kind of caught up in this lie. So I think, so then TE will do all the reason 1, reason 2, reason 3, reason 4, reason 5. And it's, I heard this thing and it was like, when people say one excuse, it's legitimate. When people have like 8 excuses, it's less likely to be legitimate. Like, if you can't show up somewhere, you're like, oh, my dog's at the vet. Or like, my dog just had this emergency, we're in the vet, can't come. That's one excuse, that makes sense. But then when people are like, oh, I can't come because I have this work thing, and then this is also happening, and then my daughter had this thing, and I'm just, you come up with all blah, blah, blah. Usually, when people give details around the event, you know that they're not actually like talking about it.
Yeah.
Do you have any more for TE?
No, that's interesting.
Okay. This comes along, that Jeep ride I just spoke about, how super fun it was to be all top down or whatever. This also became kind of a drama thing. I notice sometimes ESFPs get caught in this drama, and it's just because I don't find the FI first or second handles conflict super well. It's like, because what FI wants to do is it wants to be morally righteous, like self-righteous, above reproach. It wants to, it wants to be liked, and it wants to be found like moral and right. So if that's the end goal, sometimes TE will be super sloppy and like, okay, we're going to find all these reasons why they're wrong, and any means necessary, we're going to end up right at the end of this. And so, I don't know where I was going with that, because I don't feel like this relates to
I was wondering how it was going to
yeah, I don't know, that's coming back around. Okay, anyway, so this whole Jeep, there was some drama around this Jeep situation, because, so her parents were like, you shouldn't have bought this Jeep, so it was this $30,000 Jeep. She put, like, it's something extremely low, like $100 down, or that's maybe extreme. It was like not very much down. Anyway, she's like, I'm gonna be in so much debt. It's gonna be so bad. And then she was driving super fast and she crashed it. This was right after we'd hung out. And so then it was this whole deal that like she totaled this Jeep. And so that's kind of an NI issue of like not seeing maybe the consequences. Like, it's super fun to drive fast in the moment, but I'm talking like pretty fast. Like, I'm talking like 30 miles an hour over the speed limit on the freeway.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like a type that could get into debt fairly easily. Just
Yeah, it seems like it. I have heard of credit card issues, yeah.
because they have like T in the third place. I think wants to be respected and liked. I mean, everyone does, but especially TE. I think wants like those monetary values, like houses or cars, nice businesses, and so could go into debt without thinking about the NI. If you're not tapped into NI enough, like what is the long term effect of these things?
I do know one ESFP. She got into a ton of credit card debt, like a ton. And then she worked super hard and she paid it all off. And then she was telling me now that so she has like all these different like savings things now. It's kind of crazy like how much she's done this with all this long-term planning. So she always wants to have $15,000 in her like regular savings account. And then she has all these like other accounts as well. I was like, that's pretty good. I think that's pretty good, especially for an ESFP. I think the whole quadra, what is it called? Is it the gamma quadra? I'm not sure. Anyways, this whole quadra, I think, probably can tend to have money overspending issues.
Yeah.
Probably. So I think that was pretty good for someone in this quadra. Yeah, I think that's probably it. So maybe getting into growth advice. I think sometimes what annoys is people are too much in their first function, not nuanced enough in their second function, too much in their third function, not nuanced enough, or like not enough in their fourth function. So I think if you work on introverted feeling and work on being truly morally righteous instead of just wanting to appear truly morally righteous, I think there's a big difference between those two things. Between not wanting to be criticized by people and then actually being above criticism, I think are two different things. And working on, a strong moral value that people have a lot of times with introverted feeling is treating other people certain ways. And moral people are kind to other people. And you hear I heard some people talking about it's one of their morals sort of like to treat waiters or staff of any kind nicely. And I think making sure that you actually take that FI away from being self-centered and include lots of different types of moral things about how you treat people. I think selflessness is a good moral to have. If FI can develop selflessness as like a moral ethic, I think that's good. And then the fourth function is introverted intuition. I think just thinking more about long-term plans, getting more into that deep side of you. I've had some deep conversations with ESFPs, and when they get into it, I love it because I just love when people are balanced is pretty much what it is, because these functions all give you certain things. And I think if you have like these 4 tools in your tool belt and you're only using 2 of them, you're really cutting yourself short. Like I think that these are super helpful. I think one thing that people realize is they can realize these things in other personality types. They're like, oh yeah, man, they are way too much in that third function. That annoys me. But they don't tend to notice it in themselves. They're like, yeah, it's annoying when other people are in their third function, but it's not annoying when I'm in my third function. And so it can be a little hypocritical.
Yeah, my biggest advice for ESFPs, I think they can tend to be really busy. So just take time to slow down. If you feel like your schedule is packed, it probably is. And take time to just make sure in your packed schedule you're creating time, carving out time for yourself and for processing. Things like journaling are great for FI, counseling are great for NI and FI, to just think through, process your life, where you're wanting to head in your life, so that you're not just stuck in this busyness. Doesn't get you anywhere. It can be like running on a treadmill with EFP. You're not thinking about where you're wanting to go and what you're running towards. So I think it's fine to live life fast, but just know why you're living life fast and where you're headed, and you'll get a lot further.
Yeah, I think journaling is super helpful for FI to really process some of those feelings. What all is in there? Because sometimes FI can be a really complicated landscape, and it's like, about these motivations, and 8 of my motivations are good, and 4 of my motivations are bad, and, really just getting into and trying to clean out all your selfish motivations or the bad motivations, and not to judge yourself too harshly, because everyone's got, a mixture of motivations. There was something else I was going to say. That's the worst when that happens. A social media break is what I was gonna say. When I text ESFPs, they respond like lightning quick. And just in my experience, they respond super quick, and you're like, probably because they were already on their phone. You know what I mean? I find that they're like, I find that SE users, SE DOMs, love TikTok. Any of the EPs, I find like short form content a lot, and they can just be like in it for a long time. And there's nothing wrong with liking short form content or anything, but it's just an overindulgence. That's kind of a theme with ESFPs, is overindulgence, and I think social media can be one of those overindulgences. Like your screen time, like over time it's kind of crept up about like what's a normal screen time, but I try to keep like, think about like, I feel like a pretty normal screen time for people is 3 hours a day, and you're like, 3 hours, that's a lot. And I've heard of one 16 hours a day. I heard one person that has 16 hours a day of screen time. You're like, whoa.
Yeah, if you watch this video all the way through, then you've done great work so far.
Oh yeah, that's good. Yeah, you've worked. Yeah, that's good. I
think that's a good growth step. Like watching some long form, even podcasting or YouTubing, like long form growth content, I think is really good for your FI and NI. It doesn't have to be like just ESFP content, but just personal development content or things that grow you as a person. Take time to consume that content too.
Yeah, I think it's probably a growth step for. Like, so me being the opposite, I've got, like SE4. So for me, the growth step is like, okay, let's be quicker. Let's be more entertaining. Let's not drag this out for like 30 minutes. So yeah, it goes both ways.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, that's all I got too. Yeah. Thanks so much for watching.